Girly Girl Bookworm. So today we are here for my February wrap-up part 1. Last time I spoke to you, I was still pregnant, and obviously I'm no longer pregnant. So this is Sawyer. He was born February 2nd. So the date, not 2nd, 3rd. Sorry. February 3rd. So the day that I was filming all those other videos, I was not actually having I was having contractions, just not the real ones, which was kind of disappointing. But he decided to make his appearance. We ended up having to, we did go to my induction date just because my due dates were kind of all over the place. I was due January 27th. I was due February 4th. I was due February 10th. So we just decided to go right down the middle and induce February 3rd, and he came that night. So yeah, I figured he can be part of this wrap-up video because he is part of my first half of February. So I know that I did my January wrap-up early just because I wasn't sure how I was feeling and what was happening, and I wanted to get it over with. So I do have some January books to finish talking about with you. The first is Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. This book ended up being 5 stars, just like I said in my wrap-up from the last time, where I was like, I bet you if this continues the way it is, I will give it 5 stars, and I did. I ended up crying my bloody eyes out at the end of this one. I couldn't put it down. It's funny because I find that I don't necessarily love her older works, but her newer works I can't get enough of. So if you missed my last wrap up, or if you haven't seen what this one's about, we're following a woman who is coming back to town after being released from jail, and she is trying to get her daughter back, who she's never even met, and she ends up kind of teaming up ish with this local bartender, and 5 stars. So good. I ended up finishing, I can't remember the full title. I just wrote Ma Dixon. What is it called? Who is Ma Dixon? I ended up finishing that one. I borrowed that one from the library physically, which is huge. I would never do that. So I borrowed that one from the library, and I gave that one 4 stars. We're following a woman who is in the publishing company, and she knows of this author named Maud Dixon, but Maud Dixon is a pseudonym, and one day she ends up kind of in a way where she ends up working for the infamous Maud Dixon, because nobody knows who Maud Dixon is. She's very secretive, and crazy things go down. It's hard because I gave it 4 stars because the pacing was very off, where it started off really strong and then it slowed down and then it picked back up. And I think it slowed down because there's a part which is the main twist and thing of the story, but it doesn't happen until a good chunk of the book in. And so in a way, I am mad that I knew about it going in, because then I kept waiting for it to happen. So I don't really want to talk about it just in case, because I don't want to ruin it for other people, but know that it was a really good book. The ending was intense and insane, and I gave it 4 stars. I also read Dear Justice by Nick Stone. I borrowed that one from the library. I borrowed it as an ebook. This was one that I've been wanting to read. It's the sequel to Dear Martin, and I feel like because I bought Dear Martin as a paperback, I was never prioritizing Dear Justice because it came out obviously straight to hardcover. So I was putting it off, and I finally saw it as a download, and I was like, you know what? This is my chance, and I'm really trying to take advantage of my library this year and trying to cut down my book buying, which when you see my book haul, not so much. But I'm trying to cut it down at least a little bit. So when I saw it on there, I was like, this is perfect. This is the time. We were following Justice's friend, Quan. And Quan has a little bit of a different background than Dear Martin does. So Martin, he has the supportive mom. He's got the private school. He's really set up to hopefully succeed. Now Quan, on the other hand, was dealt a different hand, and it was really interesting watching his life and watching him kind of be inspired by Martin and wanting to change his life. And it was a good story. I didn't love it as much as I loved Dear Martin. I think it was a tad bit short. I mean, they're both short, but I think it just needed a little bit more. I ended up giving it 4 stars because it was still really good. I just wanted a little bit more from it. Then I did finish The Knockout Queen by Ruthie Thorpe, and I one-starred this. This was not good. This was a book that I bought completely at random. I bought it through Book of the Month because I had a spot in my box, and I was like, you know what, I haven't bought a random book in a while, so I was like, sure, let's throw in something I know nothing about. Bad idea. This one, I feel like I almost like could not tell you what it's about. It's like these two people who are like unlikely friends that meet in high school, and weird stuff. Like the storyline was extremely difficult for me to follow. The girl like grows too much. It's just like it was just a little all over the place, and by the end I was just like, let me speed read this because I need to just like get it done. So I one started it. It wasn't for me. I couldn't follow it. It's going straight to the unheld pile right underneath me so I don't forget. And then I also finished in the month of January, The Sorority Murders by Allison Brennan. I listened to this one on audio, and I highly recommend if you're going to read this one to read it as an audiobook. It is following a boy who is in college, and he is doing his capstone project, and earlier in his college career, there was a sorority girl who was at a party and then went missing and then was dead, and nobody really knows what happened. So he, as his capstone, is doing a project podcast looking into this missing murder case, and it's called the Sorority Murder. And I liked it because it was a podcasty element and it was interesting. The narrator's voice was interesting. I will say the one thing that I was disappointed about was I felt like it definitely would have benefited from having a cast narration style where I wish that it was like the podcast had a voice and the girl had a voice and the guy had a voice. Like I just wish that it had that element involved. He does get another character involved. She's kind of an ex-marshal. I think she's an ex-marshal. And like she's got a past that's going on. So like I would have appreciated just having that differentiated voice, especially because it is told in two perspectives. So that's my only downside to that, but I gave it 4 stars. I still really enjoyed it. I'm glad that I picked this up at kind of random at Target. Then the last book that I finished in January was The Night Shift by Alex Finley. So this is his newest release. I believe it comes out in March, and I got this through Netgalley. And I wasn't sure about this one because I didn't love Every Last Fear. I was like the unpopular opinion. Everyone's giving it 4 or 5 stars, and I just thought it was okay, and I gave it like 3. So I was nervous to ask for this one because I was like, I don't want to write them another like bad review, but I'm really curious about it. So I asked for it anyways, and I got it, and I'm really glad that I did because I actually ended up really enjoying it. So I'm glad that I gave him a second chance. I ended up giving it 4 stars for following this town where years prior there was a kind of like mass killing at a Blockbuster, and the murderer essentially has gotten free, and we are then following now in the present. There's a very similar type of style murder to that one, where both of them have like a like final girl that like doesn't get killed, but it happens at an ice cream shop, and they're trying to figure out if these murders are related. Is it the guy that got away from the first one? What's going on? And we're following like this like FBI agent. We're following the girl who survived the first one. We're following like a bunch of different people. We're following a lawyer who's connected to both possible murders. So like we're following a whole bunch of characters. And I will say that the reason why I gave 4 stars is because we're following a lot of characters. So in the beginning I had to keep reminding myself, like, are you the lawyer? Are you the cop? Why are you involved in this again? So I had to do a lot of like reminding of like who everybody was and why they were important to the story. So still a really good read. I'm glad that I picked it up. I'm glad that I gave him a second chance because it was definitely worth it. So I gave that one 4 stars. Now on to the February books. Now see, if I knew I had that many left over at the end of January, I probably wouldn't have done my January wrap up as early as I did. But I started off with 3 books at the same time. So I was reading Physically Wild at Heart by K.A. Tucker. Now this is one that I feel like I look at on my shelf all the time, and I'm like, I need to read that, and then I never do, and I don't know why, and I think it's because I liked The Simple Wild so much. I gave that one 5 stars. and I feel like I had heard that this one wasn't as good, and it's not. I ended up giving it 3 stars. We're following the Jonah and Kala, who are the main characters from the first book. We're now following them as their story continues. And I just found that this does not need to be over 400 pages. It was just a lot of repetitive speaking of events and fears and just do it. Like, it was just kind of a little frustrating with that. There's a lot of communication issues. And it just kind of felt like this wasn't necessary. Like, it wasn't good. It wasn't bad. It just kind of was a book, and it was okay. And I gave it 3 stars. I liked the ending. I think the part that makes this one more disappointing than The Simple Wild is The Simple Wild had definitely a emotional pull to the story, and this one was lacking that. So I felt a little disconnected. So I ended up giving it 3 stars. And I don't think I'm going to continue with the novella and the next book. I think I'm done. And then I also was listening to How to Catch a Queen by Alyssa Cole. This is the first book in the Runaway Royal series. This is the spin-off series to the Reluctant Royal series. I will say I really like the Reluctant Royal series a bit better. We're following kind of this other country, I guess you could say, from the first series. They are connected. We are following our main character, King Sanyu. I can't remember his first name. But we're following him, and his father has recently passed away, and now he has to be king, and they give him a bride, Shanti. So it's an arranged marriage, obviously turned kind of romance. I enjoyed this one. I listened to this one on audio because I loved the first series on audio. So I feel like I can't do this series any other way besides audio. And I enjoyed it. I think that it got a little bit more political than I was expecting. Just in terms of he's king, and there's problems within the country, and they're trying to fix them and figure out, is she going to be the true queen, or is he going to take another wife, and just exploring all that. And I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. There was nothing that I loved about it like I loved about the other series. So we'll see how this series continues, but I did kind of hear that this series isn't as good, so I'm not completely surprised by the fact that I didn't love it as much, but it is what it is. 4 stars. Then one that did kind of disappoint me was The Black Kids by Christina Hammonds Reed. So I was reading this one on my Kindle. This one I won on Goodreads, so technically this copy was given to me for free through a Goodreads giveaway, and I've had it for way too long, and it's one that's been sitting on my shelf, and I keep being like, that I need to read it, and I just kept not doing it, and finally I saw it on Kindle Unlimited, so I was like, there we go, there's my chance. So this one is I guess you can call it historical fiction. It doesn't feel like historical fiction. It takes place in the 90s in 1992, and I was 2, so is that historical? I don't know, but 1992. So they're talking about the fires that were happening in Los Angeles, and then we're also looking at the death of Rodney King, and our main character, Ashley, is kind of from this affluent Black family where they have done everything in their power to make sure that their girls kind of are raised properly and go to the best schools and get the best education and have the best things. So with that comes her being this tokenized Black girl in her friend group where they're all white and she's Black. And once these riots start happening, things start to change. The dynamic starts to change. Her sister is very much a person who wants justice and wants peace, and her parents are kind of trying to get them to not give it, not go that way because that's not how they were raised. And so it was very interesting in terms of the discussions that were being had and seeing how they treated her and how she let a lot of microaggressions kind of go because she didn't realize that they were that she could kind of stand up for herself. My problem is, and I know that this is geared towards teens, but this is definitely a teen-oriented book where it just felt like a stream of consciousness of And we're talking about this, then we're talking about this, then we're back to this, and then we're over there, and over here, and over there. And it was just, like, very difficult to follow because it just felt like it was, like, everything and anything and over here and over there. And it just was a little too much to follow. And then by the end, I was just like, is this over? So I ended up giving it 3 stars just because it just was disappointing. It was not everything that I wanted it to be. And I felt like it could have taken it a little bit further if it just streamlined the plot a little bit. Then I tried to read The School for Good Mothers. I borrowed that one from my library. I got it physically from my library. I've already returned it. I ended up DNFing it after like 59 pages. So the night before my induction is the night I actually picked it up. And I started it that night and I read 59 pages and I was okay with it. And then I got home from the hospital. Like, I didn't even bring it to the hospital because that's gross. Well, it's not gross, but I didn't want to bring that to the hospital. So I came home and I kept being like, I want to read, but like, I don't want to read that. I want to read, but like, I don't want to read that. And I didn't know if it was like the book, if it was just me, or like what's going on. And so my friend Geraldine, who has a channel, she was reading it as well, and I was like, hey, did you finish that book, by the way? She's like, yeah. I was like, is it good? Like, is it worth continuing? Because I read 59 pages and I have no interest in it anymore. And she's like, just don't read it. Like, she was listening to it on audio. She goes, and if I was reading it physically, I would have DNF'd it. So I DNF'd it. That book was following a woman who one day has a tragic event with her daughter where she leaves her 18-month-old at home alone for 2 hours and she gets caught, and the government starts to like look into her and they try to want to reform her to see if she is going to be a fit parent or not. Oh, what? I would never leave you home. Did you think I was going to leave you home? So they kind of try to reform her and they want to like send her to this like school for moms, and it's, I don't know, I just was expecting it to be more dystopian-esque and crazy than it was, and I had no sympathy for her either. I don't know, like, as a mom of 2 now, like, I don't care how tired I am, I'm not leaving my baby at home alone. I don't know, I don't know. I've also never been in those shoes of postpartum or anything, but she was also like a divorced parent who didn't even have her daughter the whole time. So I'm like, why were you that like desperate to like leave the house with your kid home? I don't know. I don't know. I couldn't relate. So I DNF'd it. And then I read Ramona and Julieta, which is a romance novel that I borrowed from Libby. So I read this one as an ebook. And basically, if you couldn't tell, I've been reading a lot of ebooks because it's just easier to consume, especially in the middle of the night when I'm wide awake because he's eating and then now I'm wide awake. So Ramona and Julieta was the first book that I read post-pregnancy, like post-birth. And this one is following like a Romeo and Juliet type of story where Ramon's father owns the Taco King, which is this like basically a Taco Bell chain, and he is famous for it. And Ramon helps his father, and they end up buying this barrio where they want to put a Taco King. Only problem is there's already a Mexican restaurant there owned by Julieta's mom. Now, these two are star-crossed lovers because back in the day, Julieta's mom made tacos for Ramon's dad. And Ramon's dad stole her recipe and made the Taco King. So they kind of have some animosity because Julieta's family hates Ramon's family because they know that they stole the recipe. Ramon doesn't know this is happening. And they end up meeting under circumstances at a Dia de los Muertos party where they're all like in makeup so they don't realize that they're each other. So they end up having this meet cute and they end up having this little romance where they're torn about if they should be together or not because of their family's past. And I will say this is very, very insta-lovey. I was taking this book as just kind of what it was, so I did end up giving it 4 stars. But there were things that were just kind of a little outlandish. Ramon is very wealthy. He likes to throw his money around. And it was very insta-lovey because they just like, I feel like met and all of a sudden they were like all about each other. So I ended up giving it 4 stars, but I could see why people disliked it. But I think because I just needed something simple and easy to read, it was exactly what I needed at that time. And plus, any book that includes food, I'm sold. It was so good. I loved all the description about the food and the tacos and all that. So that element right there was perfect. Then I read One of Us is Dead by Geneva Rose. So this one comes out March or April, I think. This is her first traditionally published novel, and I got this one through Netgalley, and I didn't love it. This is the first one that I really didn't like. I've read 4. This is my 5th book by her, and I've given 3 5 stars, 1 4-star, and then this one ended up being a 3-star. I don't know. It was about this. It reminded me kind of like Big Little Lies, where you're like, someone's dead, you don't know who, and you don't know why, and you're following these like women who are like really elitist in this like small town, and they're like rich and wealthy and like to throw their money around, and they like to meet at this like hair salon. So we're following the hair salon owner, where like these women need to get all these like luxurious treatments. They need to do like 5 a month in order to keep their membership or something like that. And it was very catty and just, I don't know, it was definitely readable, but at the same time it was just kind of like annoying. I don't know. It wasn't what I expected from her based off of her other novels. It just didn't feel like her writing to me. So I ended up going with 3 stars. I did cancel my pre-order because I just feel like I don't need to own it. I won't reread it. I won't do anything with it. So unfortunately that was kind of disappointing, and I gave it 3 stars. And then I read, as an audiobook, I read The Boyfriend Problem by Maria Ankinman. This is the first book in a trilogy. I read book 2 as a Netgalley forever ago, and then I bought book 1 during like the beginning of the pandemic, and then for some reason it's just, this little thing has been just sitting on my shelf forever. And I finally found it as an audiobook, and they also have the 3rd one, so I'll definitely be reading the 3rd one soon. So they are following 3 different friends. They help run a wedding business. And I will say this one didn't have as much wedding in it. Like the second one had some, like, I know they're short, but like this one felt very unfleshed out compared to the second one. So in this one we're following Prudence, or Prue, and she decides like, you know what? I'm not meeting anybody that I love. I'm just gonna like go have a baby with a sperm donor because like I want a baby, I want a family, and I don't care about all the romance. I just want a baby. And then she accidentally has a one-night stand with her best friend. You can guess what happens. I liked it. I gave it 4 stars. I just felt like I needed more detail. I needed more information because it was so short. And then I also read 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. This is a book that Kendra got me for Christmas, and I was really looking forward to it. It was a book that like I was hesitant about because I feel like it got really buzzed a lot in the beginning when it came out, and I was like, you know what, I don't think I'll like it. And then I was like, you know what, I think I'll like it. And then I gave it 3.5 stars. We're following these 2 authors, and when they were in high school, they had a kind of whirlwind, tumultuous relationship, you can say. And they end up going separate ways, and they become famous authors, and it's 15 years later, and they end up at the same like convention together, and they kind of come back together, and people realize like, oh wait, she inspired his books, oh wait, he inspired her books, wait, what's happening, like how do they know each other, what's this relationship about? And they kind of re-spark it to an extent. I found a lot problematic. There's this book is not just like the typical like literary fiction. Either it gets very sexual, it gets very like R-rated. There's drug use and alcohol use in here that's kind of problematic, especially as a teenager. And there's just neglect, lots of things that just like I felt like were not necessarily addressed. And there were parts where I really, really liked the book, and I was like, okay, cool, like, I can't put this down. And then there were parts where I was like, do I DNF this book? So, like, I couldn't give it more than, like, at one point I was like, maybe I can give it 4 stars, but I was like, I can't, But then I was like, I kind of like it a lot, but I kind of don't. So then I was like 3, but then I felt like 3 wasn't enough, so I went 3.5. I don't know. I was really bummed by this one because I really wanted to love it like everybody else, but I didn't. I'm sorry. And then the last book I just finished this morning, was Never Never, by Colleen Hoover and Taryn Fisher. This one I've been wanting to read forever, and I like never let myself do that. I've been feeling like I was hitting like a reading rut where I was like, I'm liking the books I'm reading, but there's nothing I'm loving. You know, like I haven't really loved anything since Reminders of Him. Like I need something that like I'm gonna love. And somebody was like, why don't you read a Colleen Hoover book? And I was like, you know what? That's the last book I loved. So maybe this is finally the time. I don't own it. I found it. I've had it on my Kindle Unlimited, like, library, like my Kindle Unlimited download forever. So I finally borrowed it for real and, like, actually read it. And I gave it 4 stars. I've never read the synopsis of this book before, so I didn't actually know what it was about going into it. I remember when it was first coming out, and I remember watching people haul it, and it was like, the parts, like part 1, part 2, part 3. I read it as the like combo series book. And I enjoyed it. It's following these 2 teenagers, which I didn't really necessarily like because I wasn't in the mood for YA, but it's what it is. And it's following these 2 teenagers, and one day they both wake up and they don't have any memories of anything. They don't remember each other, they don't remember their name, they don't remember anything. Like they'll randomly remember like, oh wait, I could Google that, or oh wait, the Giants were in the Super Bowl, or like song lyrics, but they can't remember anything else, which is crazy. And so they end up finding each other, and they end up trying to unravel why they don't remember things and what's going to happen. And I found it intriguing. I found it interesting. I couldn't stop because I wanted to know why they couldn't remember anything, and I was trying to figure out if it was like a paranormal thing or what was going on. So it was addictive, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. It's not my newest favorite thing in the world, but it served its purpose. Today, and I meant to tell you too, this is also early that I'm filming this on the 12th, technically, just because Sydney went to dance class and I was like, I've got the house to myself. I'm going to film. So I'm doing this a little bit early. I don't know necessarily what I want to be reading right now. I started the audiobook this morning for Don't Cry For Me by Daniel Black. This is about a man who is dying, and he's writing letters to his son to try to make amends. His son is gay, and I don't think he's ever accepted it, so he's trying to like tell him his life story on his deathbed. So I'm listening to that one, and I kind of, as you can tell, threw my TBR out the window because I've been trying to read as much ebook as possible just because that's the easiest, and there's not a ton of stuff on my ebook right now, so I don't really like the books that were on my TBR are not available as ebooks is what I'm trying to say. So I think my next physical read, even though I want to read something else, is probably going to be this. And then I don't know what I'm going to read on my Kindle next, but we'll see. I'm enjoying, like, not I'm enjoying, I meant to say, like, even though I didn't read as much in the beginning of February, obviously because of this, I'm pretty happy with my numbers for this month so far. I think we're doing pretty good. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you've read any of these books, let me know down below, and we will see you in my next video. Bye, everybody.